Hey, go us. You guys have a good time? So, yeah, that was, wow, that was a ringing endorsement. They're like, yeah, I guess it was reasonably good. Like,
are you all hungover?
You're
okay,
not.
That guy is not hungover.
You cannot possibly be hungover, or else your inner ear just blew up when you did that. So every year we do the ShmooCon closing plenary session a little differently than I think most conferences do. Every other talk. Yeah, there's some booze. It's Sunday morning. Actually, it's not the morning anymore. I told Ben, I was talking to him earlier about this, and I said, hey, dude, at 1:30, we're going to get on stage and just wing it. And he's like, why are we going to wing it halfway through the panel? And I realized I had the wrong time. I was literally going to show up here at 1:30, and these guys are just going to be sitting here awkwardly.
It says 1:30 on the website.
Does it?
Yeah, on
Sweet.
the schedule.
So I'm not that
says
crazy.
1:30.
Anyway, so we kind of glue together a plenary based on something we think would be interesting. Sometimes it's calling like 3 or 4 talks together from what came across the CFP, and they all look the same. Like last year we did a big mass scan. We scanned the internet like 5 or 6 times during the talk. This year we just got the wizened old people on stage, and we're going to have a conversation.
Yesterday I was called seasoned.
Seasoned?
Yes.
Yes, like a steak. So, as a preface to all this, I used the term the other night, I'm going to pick on Ben again, Eternal September. And Ben did not know what that was, which I was kind of shocked because he had lived through the Eternal September. How many people lived through the Eternal September and remember what it was? Yeah, there are people in this room that were born after the Eternal September, so allow me to explain. Every year in the early days of the internet, back when there were things like Usenet and things like that, schools would start, students would get accounts, and all hell would break loose on news groups and gopher sites and gopher sites. Yes, I use the term gopher sites. If you don't know what gopher is, go look it the hell up. Please God, it was a way of life for some. And all these new kids would get online, and their netiquette was terrible. They typed in all caps, they cross-posted, they top-posted, it was just a mess. And it would take a couple weeks to beat the hell out of these kids and get them to understand, like, this is the way the internet works, damn it, and you're going to conform to our ways. And after, September ended and October came around, people were generally more well-behaved on the internet. And then September of 1993 happened. And that was the grand commercialization of the internet. AOL was coming on board full force. And the September of 1993 never ended. We are still trying to convince people how to be good netizens and hitting them with baseball bats, but it's like a zombie flood, right? Like, you take one out and 10 more are like, what's up, dude? All caps, man, woo! And in some ways, we're kind of entering this eternal September insecurity in some ways, I think. There's a lot of money flooding into this, the industry. There's a lot of change. There's a lot of different motivations we had in the past. And I know I can be a crotchety old man. See my rant at the start of this thing. Took me a couple days to come down from that. I think that as much as I want the past to continue into the future, I think things are going to change. But that said, I think there's a lot of lessons we can learn from the past. And many people in this room are very new to the industry and haven't had the opportunity to kind of hear, like, tell me how it used to be, Grandpa and Grandma. And this is the part where Carole kills me later.
I promise to kill him if he says.
Okay. So anyway, I'm going to allow the panelists to do a brief introduction and provide their kind of view of the universe, and then I've got some questions, and we're going to kind of just roll through this. There's not going to be a lot of structure. If you have comments or feedback, we'd love to hear it. Again, just from my personal perspective, I'm honored to be on stage with this team here. I still feel that I have a lot to learn in my profession, in my industry, and I look to folks like this to learn from. For those of you that are relatively new, these people here represent in excess of a century of knowledge in information security, and I don't mean that in a disparaging way.
Now I feel really old, thanks.
Well, most of it's Rick, so anyway, there's a lot to be learned from this crew. So if you have questions or you have comments or whatever, just loft them out like a shmooball, and we'll go from there. So first, don't hit the scotch. Yeah, please, God. I'll let Ben introduce himself first. This is Ben Laurie.
So yeah, I'm Ben Laurie, and I'm Ben Laurie, and when Bruce invited me on this panel, he said he wanted to talk about the last 2 decades in security, and this is where the Eternal September came up, because I was like, didn't the internet start around then? So we're going to talk about apparently the whole history of the interwebs. I think there's two things that I've kind of really stick out for me that I've learned in the last few years, and the first one is that you know, all the crypto and protocols and all that stuff that we think are really important, you know, get us nowhere unless users can use shit. And thank you. And the reason users can't use shit is not because users are stupid or broken, it's because we are stupid and broken, and we really need to get our shit working properly so that users can do what they want to do, which is not really generally security, it's just getting on with their lives. And it should be secure in the process of doing that, and we really suck at that. The other thing we really suck at, apparently, is writing secure software, and apparently we're not getting any better at that. So I think we need to find other ways to deal with that. Again, you know, programmers are users too, and we're not fixing them either. And so we need to find ways to make it easier for programmers to make their shit not break all the time. And that's me.
Yay, Ben. Next up is Space Rogue, the only one left going by a handle on this panel, I think.
Yeah, it's a good point. I actually kind of went with the real name a couple years ago because I got a real job, but I still use the handle a lot, which is interesting. And that kind of segues good into the point that you were making during the opening, is that hacker culture as we knew it is basically dead. Or maybe just smoldering somewhere. It's not. Things have changed dramatically. I mean, back in our day, we would laugh a lot at law enforcement, and we would say, "Oh, look at the Steve Jackson Games case. You know, look at Operation Sun Devil. Those guys had no clue, and they don't know what they're doing, and they're busting the wrong people, and you know, they're stealing cassette tapes because they think there's data on them, and it's changed now where it's no longer where we have that ability to sit and say that we are better or more intelligent or smarter or ahead of the curve when it comes to law enforcement. That role has flip-flopped, I think. All right, you have organizations like the NSA and the FBI and whatnot, and those guys got some really smart people working for them now, and they're really doing some really good stuff, and that's not, it's taken away from us, but it kind of puts us where we are in the hierarchy of things. And now we have the President of the United States calling us out in a State of the Union address and levying sanctions against another sovereign nation for something they did or did not do. It doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter anymore because it's that level. It's global, it's nation state awareness. It's no longer underground BBSs calling at midnight. We are definitely turned a corner and have done something. It's now different. It's not the same as it was, and I don't know if it ever will be again or if we even want it to be. But yeah, that's where we are now.
So
Next.
going on? Okay. Hi. I'm Carole Fennelly. I'm an freelance information security management consultant in the Greater New York area. I think Bruce invited me because he tried to get a really old guy, Simple Nomad, and Nomad couldn't make it, and I was the closest in age. So I started out in this field actually in 1982, so I think I'm older than all of you. I was a Unix system admin in Bell Labs for about 10 years, then did some consulting on Wall Street, dealt with the Y2K conversion of 600 firewalls in a financial, and dealt with a lot of that kind of stuff. And then we had Endless September, where I worked in a place that was a little bit hacked. And back in the days before the commercialization of the internet, most of everybody was technical, and we could pretty much run security. But now I'm seeing the big problem is we think it's a technical problem, and it's really a business problem. And the problem is, yeah, we can try to make our software secure, we can come up with tools, we can come up with all sorts of stuff, but until we get the business people on board with what are we trying to protect, I don't think we're going to really make much headway. I think we're just going to keep seeing the same things. I can recycle articles I wrote 15 years ago, just change a few names and it's the same thing. Somebody asked me about predicting the big things that might happen this year. What's going to be the big malware? And I was like, well, in 2014, who would have predicted that we were going to get vulnerabilities in 25-year-old software that wasn't made by Microsoft? And that is embedded all over the place. So I think trying to predict it And we also do a pretty good job of trying to come up with severity levels of threats. And we're focused on the threats and the threat vectors, but what about what we're trying to protect? Is anybody really looking at that? And that's where we need the business people to come in and step to the plate and get some better bridge between the technical people and the people who want the data protected. So that's my sorry little story.
Thanks, Carole.
Turn it over to youngster Rick.
Thank you,
Don't
Carole.
say it.
Somebody's dead. Who's digging the grave?
Everyone's in denial of their age. Let's just be real clear about this. We're like,
I'm at least 10 years older than all of you, so
well, that's probably true.
Thank you, thank you, Carole.
I have no problem with it.
My name is Rick Forno. I've been in the internet security world probably since the early 90s. Thanks. I think my first major exposure to the field was the raid at Pentagon City back in 93, 94, 92, 91. Back around there, I was actually heading down to my first ever hacker meeting, and I heard a bunch of noise. And I was looking down, and I was like, oh shit, maybe I won't go down. And we all know what happened after that. But since then, okay.
There are people that are 17 years old in this audience.
By the way,
That Alzheimer's kicking in, Rick.
I'm sorry, who are you? Who here was born after 1996? Show of hands. Get off my lawn. Okay. It was one of the first major busts, if you will, of hackers, so to speak. They kind of set the stage for a lot of the computer crime investigations, law enforcement results that occurred in the 90s and 2000s. But that kind of got me interested into this whole field, and I've seen it grow up, as we all have, working in the government, the private sector, the military. I think, sharpened my teeth working at Network Solutions at the Internet, where you got that bird's eye view of internet security infrastructure and how this .com society back then was coming into fruition. And since then, I've really worried about a lot of the things that we've already heard, but more so, what are we setting ourselves up for as a digital society? I cringe, and this is the only time I hope I'll use the word, I cringe in this town when I hear people say things like, prepare for a cyber Pearl Harbor.
Whoa!
All right, kick that guy out. Who
You got the
knocked over the
panelist
booze?
wet.
But
Oh.
the issue I have is that FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt, is driving a lot of the decisions we're seeing in technology procurement, policies, laws, legislation, that's setting the stage for internet security for the next 20 years. Just look at the Sony hack. Week after we started doing sanctions, you've got people on Capitol Hill using this as a justification for new laws to deal with, with security. And those laws that are being proposed will not do anything. They sound good. They deal with information sharing, talking about the problem. You read my blog. Security theater, as Bruce Schneier and others will say. So I worry about this, where we're heading for the next 20 years with security in the sense of what is the foundation of our digital society, what policies and procedures are going to drive and shape them, and I worry, quite frankly, that FUD is going to play a large part of that. All you gotta do is look at things like the Sony hack, the Home Depot, Target, so on and so forth, and how that's being used to justify things like CISPA, SOPA, the convergence of security and intellectual property monitoring. This issue is becoming very convoluted, and the C word is becoming power, because that's where the money is. That's where the prestige is in this town, and that's very frightening. Money is going to really
He meant
be a problem.
cyber. He meant cyber. I just wanted to be clear on that. Like what?
I know what he meant, and but I'll let it pass. Because I know half of you want to tell him to drink, don't you? And that is now no longer appropriate, I don't think, especially in this town. All right? Okay, you can do whatever you want. I don't care, right? But if you want to affect change and impact the people that are making those changes who are in this town, and you sit and yell drink in the back of the room when somebody says cyber on stage, you're the one who's looking like the little girly guy giggling in the back of the room. And hey, I love to drink as much as the next guy, but that's the state of the world right now.
Right.
You know, if we're going to make a joke out of it, we're going to get treated like children, and that we get laws like this new State of the Union bullshit. That's what happens. So
Whoa, whoa.
that, my friend, was wrong.
Thank you. Called out his bias on that. Anyway, this conversation's gone to great places already. Holy shit. And Ben is just destroyed. Like, you could cover
The table's
it.
already a mess.
Following up on what Greg was
I'll move
saying
my phone off
about,
the table.
you know, the knee-jerk reactions and everything, we were talking about this a little bit this morning, is it's taking the onus off of the business units like Sony and saying, hey, it's not their fault. You know, it's all these cyber threats and these hackers and all these other things and nation states doing this. Where's Sony's responsibility to secure their networks? Not just Sony, I mean, it's anybody's.
Is it possible to secure your network?
Okay, not entirely, but there is some basic due diligence. you
JP
know.
Morgan Chase got hacked. How much did they spend on security? Arguably, some of it was spent in the right direction, and they got owned, right? Like, I don't believe that you can say, it's not like it absolves them of not doing anything, but like, hey, we're on the wrong end of this from a defensive perspective, so I don't know that you can blame the victim on this if they're doing anything that looks like best practices at all. I don't know what the hell Sony was doing, to be clear. What public rumor is, it wasn't very good, but I don't know that you can put the onus on the company and say, it's your fault for getting hacked.
If you have advisors that you're paying to advise you on your security, and you don't listen to their advice, and then suddenly you get hacked, whose fault is it?
Like, how many people are in an organization that is trying to get patching done and trying to say, hey, let's take care of that SSL problem, and they're getting pushback from the business units of, no, we can't afford the downtime. You know?
No, I
Yeah.
Right, and from an advisory perspective, I mean, to be frank, we're kind of an industry of prima donnas and sometimes. Like, security is really important. You got to secure this. You got to do this. You got to do this. And I think that there's been a lot of, crying wolf from the security industry for years. And now that the wolf's actually here, it's a little harder to get traction, even at the executive level. I mean, that's been my experience, is that the advisors can say stuff all day long, but whether or not anybody's listening, you know, we've polluted the water for so long, it's hard to make the case.
Well, we also,
high-profile companies 2 years before they got owned, and we had a solution that if it wouldn't have prevented the owning, at least it would have helped them catch it faster and mitigate it. And they said to us 2 years before this happened, this is too expensive, we will never get the budget for it. 2 years later, now they have the budget for it after they're on the front.
Yeah, exactly. So the problem with that is you have to change the incentives. So there's no incentive for them to put it out there at the beginning because of the cost, right? The cost against the unknown. What you have to do is incentivize them in a different way, which either raise their business because your customers are leaving them, like say Target. So if security isn't important, customers leave. You have to try and incentivize the customers to do something and choose businesses that are putting security first, or else the business won't change. Because there's always, almost always at the moment, cheaper to come in after the fact.
This argument's at least 25 years old, if not older.
Yeah.
We've all had this argument with our own companies.
but I think some of the other problem is the technical people sometimes do a really shitty job of explaining things to the business people in terms that they'd understand. Sorry.
Carole in stereo.
You know, if you go, you've got 1,800 critical vulnerabilities on your network. Well, what the hell does that mean?
So,
Some of us technical people can explain this to a lot of these business people. They choose not to listen most of the time. I believe that. They just don't want to hear it. They're like, internet.
so wait. Hey,
I'm going to try to not be myself too much. Happy birthday, Jack.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday. What's your name?
Yeah, Jack.
Okay. Happy birthday. Here you go.
I'm older than you, right? So I'm older than anybody on the panel. I know I've got you beat.
Just one thing that gives me perspective, and I love to be the asshole security guy. I spent many years being the asshole security guy. No, you can't do that. You can't go to that website. It might be bad. But in my past life in the car business, I had to renew the firewall subscriptions 1 year. I also had employees that were responsible, about 84 people that were under me. And I looked at the books and I realized the owner wasn't lying when she said, oh, you can do that as long as you don't want to make payroll this week. You tell them. And so the money thing, it's not magical. I'm not saying that businesses aren't short-sighted and all that, but just really, if you haven't been in that place, which like some of us are, as a matter of fact, a lot more, because I'm looking at Bruce, because you like run a business and shit now, right? And it's like, oh shit, maybe there was a reason that they deprioritized these things. And if we can explain the economics of it, that's a big deal. I'm gonna shut up now, because I can rant forever, and you guys are good at it, but that's just, yeah, we need to be better, but there is sometimes a legitimate reason for not spending the money.
Right.
And that actually goes back to what was one of the big arguments or complaints in the 90s about the credit card companies. They would eat billions of dollars in credit card losses.
They still do.
They still do, to keep it quiet and not to admit that in court proceedings and let it get out. Cost of doing business. Will that ever change? I don't know. It's working for them.
So I think this gets to Ben's point, though, regarding building better technologies that aren't sawed-off shotguns aimed at your own feet. I think that users aren't going to get any more smart, and they shouldn't have to be, right? Like, users should be allowed to open up their computer, use it.
Users can click anything they want.
Damn right. Like, and they should have the ability to do that. And developers are psychotic, and they're doing things like CI/CD and DevOps, which take IT out of the loop, which are IT's gatekeepers in a lot of ways, right? And without the gatekeepers, the developers run the shop. That's terrifying. And they don't make good security decisions. But at the end of the day, like, they shouldn't be able to make decisions that are security wrong, right? But we're still using C, we're still using PHP, and then we're inventing this whole universe of things around, like, CI/CD, where you load your Amazon credentials into something, and this magic box provisions everything, it does all this stuff, and God help you if that magic box gets compromised. What was that Code Safe or whatever the hell that company was that, what? Code Spaces. That was a company that used to exist, right? And then their AWS credentials got stolen, and their data center got blown up. Oh my God, so they didn't use two-factor. Like, why is it even an option from Amazon then? Like, honest to God, like with AWS, if you don't use two-factor, you are a password away from blowing up your data center. That's the equivalent to it. You would never do that in real life, but people do it all the time, and these developers shouldn't be able to be that stupid, right?
Can't stop stupid.
Right, but we can make it so stupid doesn't matter.
Exactly.
So stupid's not the default.
So
I don't care, let them be dumb.
I just want to argue with Bruce for a moment here, because yay. So C, right, I mean, whether or not we can find a replacement for C that is actually secure, we still have a bazillion lines of C out there that are not going away anytime soon. We've got to secure C as well, right? You can't just say C is stupid, don't use it, because we're stuck with it for decades, right?
Oh, it's still stuck on IPv4 too.
I think IPv6 is a lie, but that's a whole different thing. Yeah!
The cake is a lie.
I want to shift gears for a minute because I'm afraid that if I let this continue, we're going to have a fight. So instead, I'm going to pick a different fight. So we have, as information security professionals, we talk a lot about privacy and civil liberties and protecting ourselves and that kind of thing. And then we often have that conversation on Twitter and Facebook and places like that. And we use all kinds of Google products. And, it's interesting to me, and I can't really deconflict the hypocrisy that I see in the community with respect to complaining about the encroachment of our personal privacy and civil liberties from a nation-state perspective, and yet from a private industry perspective, we seem more than happy to give it all up for the fact of just being able to post on Facebook and talk with our friends. So I was wondering if the panelists have any, because I think all of us are on social media in some way, shape, or form, but you're the only one, again, like we talk about personal privacy. I use my real name, he uses his real name, you use your real name, everybody knows who you are. You're not really well. If there's an alias that's not well hidden, this guy, until he outed himself.
Yeah, so up until about 3 years ago, if you attempted, it was possible to figure out my real name if you knew where to look and what to look for. And a couple of people figured it out, and it wasn't a big deal. But most people never bothered. And I took really great pains to keep that hidden. And when I traveled for Symantec one time, sorry, it's just a mistake. They actually had a guy show up at the airport to pick me up with a sign that said Space Rogue, because they didn't know my real name. But then you can't get paid though as Space Rogue. You can't open a bank account as Space Rogue. I suppose I probably could if I really tried, but I do have a LinkedIn account as Space Rogue, even though they don't allow real names. So if anybody's here from LinkedIn, I'd appreciate you not deleting me. But it's an interesting point, and I remember, like, I think it was 93, 94, when Intel came out with I think it was the Pentium 3, that had the embedded unique identifier chip in it. People went holy batshit over that. Oh, yeah. It's just a little identifier, just a number, whatever, People now wouldn't even blink an eye if that happened. And actually, it probably is now happening with new Intel chips, I don't know. But I'm like, what the fuck happened in 10 years? We went from, oh my God, you can't put an ID chip in my computer, to, oh, here's all my information, I'm just going to give it to you. So I don't know. If anybody else has anything to say?
I think it's all about usability. Again, everyone uses this stuff because it's usable, it's easy, it does the job that you want to get done. And the secure alternatives that do the job that you want to get done are a pain in the ass to use, and that's why you don't use them.
No, I mean, sure. I mean, if you want to use a encrypted chat, or encrypted email, it's still like pushing a rock uphill to encrypt email, and it's mind-boggling. But at the same token, like a couple years ago, and this is no offense to TT and DEF CON, but DEF CON contests. When they were organizing the contest, we had to go to Facebook to post information about the contest. And I'm like, dude, you like have a, freaking DEF CON forums, all these other sites, everyone's anonymous, whatever, and then suddenly for the contest thing, like, I gotta go to use Facebook? And I uncorked it. I'd never post anything to Facebook in my life. I have an account just so I had something there, and I unloaded on them, and it got me nowhere. Actually, it got us put in the corner, I think is what really happened. But I don't see much discussion about this, and in general, there's like head nodding. I don't know that people even care. Like, to me, it's shocking because of, again, like, in the Pentium 3, like, that was a big deal, and now we have super cookies on our phones, right? That even when you're private browsing, your provider can still track you. That strikes me as a lot worse than the CPU having a unique identifier, to be frank. And it made some news and whatever, but we've moved on with our lives. Right? We're like, yeah.
I tell you what happens when you have, I don't know, what is it, 20 billion users on Facebook, or however many millions of people they have, and you have
20 billion? That's slightly more than the population of the Earth.
They have a lot of users, right? And all those users willingly give up all their info, and then you have a small vocal minority, at least from the powers that be, it appears to be a small vocal minority who are complaining about NSA surveillance, but yet you have a lot of people on Facebook who are just giving their information away. Obviously, the powers that be are looking at that, and they must be thinking, well, nobody really cares if we, surveil the internet and listen to all this stuff, so we're just going to do it, and we're going to ignore the vocal people because they're not really important.
Well, my favorite's the people on Facebook who then keep resharing all these, Facebook is getting your private information, and let me do this disclaimer about Facebook, and meanwhile...
They do it on Facebook.
Yeah. They do it on Facebook, and they're also sharing a ton of personal stuff, and ooh, that Groupon coupon, let me give out all my personal information so I can get 10% off. But the evil Facebook is going to get my personal information.
I have a question or a comment or something.
Okay, so I have kind of two questions. And I'm going to preface it by saying that there is, on the spectrum of technical to business side, I am way on the business side. Like, there is a really high probability I'm the least qualified person in this room.
No, there are many other lower qualified people. Did I mention that hacker culture has changed? Yeah.
You know your limitations, that qualifies you right there.
Exactly.
Statistical proof that I'm smart, but I'm learning. And it is an incredibly overwhelming world to tiptoe into. Like, the second you start learning, all you do is realize how much you don't know. And I hope that I never really lose that.
That's how you know you're learning.
But it is so vast. There are all these languages. So I think that businesses, like when I go in on a consulting project, there are people who want to just have the ostrich approach for security. Like they want to shove their head in the sand and not have to deal because it is more scary to realize all the places that they can, pardon my French, be fucked. And
That's not French.
two questions are, one, in a non-violent way, do you as long-term professionals in the space see a way to not necessarily, this doesn't even have to be educate everyone, but to make things less scary? And then B, when I think of that from a business side, I typically, and I think it's crap, but I typically think like, okay, maybe someone will come up with an insurance bridge that could like protect Sony. And I know that there is network security insurance, but how viable and how effective do you guys think it is? Where could the growth capacity be for that? How can this be less scary? Because technology is the way of the future, and I quite frankly am scared that it's going to become a larger disparity gap than income or than the achievement gap, that the idea that some people understand how the world is moving and changing and everyone else doesn't is scary.
So that was like 6 questions. I just wanted to be clear, like I was counting in my pocket. I'm like, yeah, it was like 6.
I can
So-
take.
Yeah, I was gonna say for the stream that she just asked, like security's hard, right?
I could take part of that, and I know security awareness stuff has been done to death, and I've been part of security awareness programs that were complete bullshit. It was just, way that they can get metrics to have people show up at security training that is choose good passwords and use your password like your toothbrush, change it, and that kind of crap. But I think a meaningful kind of workshop that would have some of the business people and the technical people in an organization in a room go through some scenarios of some potential attacks that might happen on your network and talk about how that would really impact you. For example, as mentioned, I came out of the Ivy Tower of Bell Labs where we were all about absolute security. Steve Belvin and I were in a panel together and we're looking at, really how to make something as secure as possible. Then I go to work on a trading floor and I'm talking about, well, this network connection has got to be secure. And somebody said, no, it's got to be secure enough because if a trade doesn't go through in time, we're going to get fined by the SEC. And that kind of opened my eyes to the fact that it's not always about absolute security, it's really risk management, and we need to understand what the business drivers are, but until you get those people in the same room, I don't think you're going to get any meaningful progress.
And to build on that, I think a marketing or a business, a product development mantra nowadays is still first to market at 80% is better than third to market at 100%.
Who applauded for that? Like,
And
well, yeah, okay, that's fair, but applauding it seems weird. Like,
No, but Carole makes a good point. It is about risk management, and it's not about being secure. It's about accepting the risk for being unsecure and dealing with it as an organization.
Then why aren't we actually holding the companies that are doing this risk management culpable for what they're doing?
Well, I don't think they really understand the risk management that they're doing.
They're interested in keeping their costs down, right?
It's a problem though, right? So you take a look at Sony, right? Sony got hacked. Whoop-de-fucking-do, right? At the same time, we're now saying, oh, it's North Korea, it's their fault, so whatever.
Oh, that's bullshit.
It's all bullshit. But at the same time, why aren't we holding Sony culpable for their fuck-up? Why does it matter?
thank you. Like, so,
If somebody had broken, if Sony had left the front door open, physically door, and somebody walked in and took stuff, is it Sony's fault?
oh.
No, it's
it is
not. Legally, it is not their fault. It's the guy who walked in and took the stuff. He's the one getting arrested and going to jail. It's not Sony's fault for leaving the door open.
Right. So, and this gets to your insurance question too. Like, in order to insure something, you have to have some kind of statistical model that you can base probability and impact against, right? And, well, we think we know what's going on, and then Heartbleed happens, and 90% of the world's secure web servers are vulnerable to having all their memory snarfed. Like, I didn't see that coming. Where was that in your statistical model, right? And then a month later, like, oh, shell shock rolls around and causes us problems. Like, well, I guess insurance just cost infinity now, right? Like, it was a divide by zero error. I don't know what happened. Like, shit just went bad. And I think that's part of the problem I have when you start blaming the companies. And I'm not saying these companies are doing it right. God knows I walk into enough companies that aren't doing it right, and we have to like get them from, like, it feels like it's the 90s again, you know? There's an HP Xbox in the corner and whatever. But at the end of the day, like, it's really freaking hard. And their mainline business isn't to secure themselves, right? If they can't do their mainline business, be it, you know, selling corn or building widgets or whatever, if they can't do that well, the security doesn't matter in the first place. The company will be out of business.
Well, I'm not looking at blaming the company for getting hacked, but what I'm saying is, I'm just using Sony as an example, did they understand what they were trying to protect? Did the executives understand that all these emails were going back and forth, which was a pretty horrible idea? I mean, who thinks about protecting email? I don't consider email secure, but if they really knew what the content of those emails were, maybe they'd have had a better policy, better approach, or better awareness of their business practices.
Does anyone have an email form in their company that's secure and encrypts all email?
No, but don't be dumb enough to send something in email that you really don't want public.
Has the stock price of Sony dropped very much? Right, that's insurance. That's not liability.
That's
I mean,
not
that's not criminality.
Yeah. This woman's going to come back there and smack you, Quali, and we're going to let her talk. So. They would be terrified. So
you bring up a good point about getting outside the echo chamber. You bring up a good point about getting outside the echo chamber, and one way that we can do that, all of us can do that, is go speak at non-security cons. Yes. All right? Yes. You may not get accepted at ShmooCon. You may not be able to get accepted at DEF CON or PumpCon or any of these other security cons, but you can get accepted at the medical device conference. Right? You will get accepted at, what was the conference here today? The political science conference. Like, if you submit a security conference, a security talk to one of these conferences, I'll almost guarantee that you will get accepted and be able to speak and educate a couple hundred people in the room at a time, and you're outside the echo chamber.
And that's a huge thing. I know in academia, there's a big push towards making security interdisciplinary. It's not just the hands-on keyboard anymore. It's economics, it's sociology. You know, get into the mind of the bad guys and the good guys. So you're exactly right. Conferences, presentations, education doesn't need to take place at security-only conferences. Get the word out any way you can in any venue that you can and make a difference that way.
Yeah, and actually I had that where Andrea Metwishin, who's around here somewhere, invited me to speak at Wharton School of Business. This was not a security conference, not technical people, all lawyers and business people, and a few of us came on and talked about security to help them get more awareness. So I think it's a good point too.
Yes, we are.
Special uniform.
right, they want to make money and build their product.
Well, they don't want to be the next Sony either.
Yeah. No, they don't care. There's been no. Hold on. There's been no impact from these breaches, not in a meaningful way.
They don't want the media.
The media, everybody knows that Sony Pictures Entertainment is a thing, and there was a movie called Shitty, or whatever it was called, and everybody went to go see it. They couldn't have bought it better. They'll be better in the long run for this.
The only accountability we're seeing is how many years of credit monitoring you get being a victim.
Well, sir,
that's debatable.
You want the mic? Yeah, come on up and grab the mic. That's the initiative I like to see. This guy's got a bird hanging from his leg. This is great. I wouldn't walk too far. We'll get feedback and we'll all be deaf.
So I'm probably not qualified to speak on the subject, but I'm just going to say the best incentive for businesses would be, one, financially, which Sony can definitely say they've been hit financially really hard, but two, and we all make crap on the White House's proposal for legislative changes, but that's where this is heading. We've had a long time to fix it. They're all pointing at us and saying we haven't fixed it. Each of the panel members could be in an elected position to make changes. So we can't just sit back and say we can't fix it and throw our hands up in the air and say government's not the answer, because they're going to push forward.
They're going to legislate anyway.
That's exactly right. And we all have the active duty to be a part of that process. We can't just say government sucks and throw our hands up.
You can use this one, Ricky.
So,
I think, let me quick
go ahead.
response to that.
Yeah.
Speaking of the echo chamber, the problem with, and I agree with what you said, the problem is the echo chamber is alive and well in this town. So when you start having the hearings on CISPA or Secure IT or any other cutesy named congressional legislation, you're going to have the same talking heads from industry, private sector, the lobbyist groups, saying the exact same things that if you go back to the congressional record have been said probably for 15, 20 years. So I'm not that optimistic that the legislative process will improve, but you'll see more laws enacted that won't really do much to improve security.
right.
But people will make money off of it.
Oh, absolutely, always profit.
We got red-shirted ensign back there. Yeah. Yeah. So for the live stream, we have a software developer who stood up that said he feels the personal responsibility to come here to learn about security. So if all other software developers can just quit, we'll let this guy deal with it. He's like, no, I can't write that much code. I have a man in the back trying to land an airplane. Yes, sir. There you go. What's up? Woohoo! Lots.
Last 20 years.
5
30
years?
years.
30 years for some of us.
Yeah.
Well, I understand that my situation
I promise you that they are excellent at keeping the stuff that they don't want you to know.
Yeah.
Private.
My situation's a little bit exceptional. My daughter's now 21, never posts a thing on Facebook, and gets irritated if I tag her in a picture at all. But then again, she's been going to Black Hat since she was 8 years old and was the youngest ever speaker at Black Hat. So she's been hearing about all these horrible things, and she's actually terrified of social media. So talk about security awareness from a very young age, you know.
So here's my view on this. I think as technology has progressed from the time that we figured out fire and the wheel, our privacy has been eroded. You know, before we had horses and buggies, I could live in the woods and people couldn't come find me, and then suddenly they could come find me faster. And then there was telegraphs, and people could send me a message wherever I was with a guy with a little hat who would read me the telegram. That's how it worked, right? I'm really fuzzy on telegram history. I learned it all from movies, though it seems correct. So I think that we're going to continue to become more interconnected, and there's nothing that's going to stop it. I got a 4-year-old who can figure out any game on an iPad in about 8.5 seconds. I think he's going to grow up oblivious to the privacy concerns that I feel are outrageous, and I'm super curious what he's going to think are violations of his privacy in that space, right? I can't even fathom in 20 years what he's going to be wrangled up about when it comes to personal privacy and civil liberties. Me, God damn it, Dad.
Wait till he's 12 and you start looking at his web browsing logs.
Right. His web browsing logs are all just trying to buy more games. But I'm convinced that society will always continue to outpace us from a security and a privacy perspective. And as a bunch of kind of whiny professionals, we're not going to impact them by ranting and raving. There's really 2 giant levers that you can pull. One is legislative and law, and we know how that ends, and it's not well. We still have the DMCA. It's alive today. And other things are still alive, and there'll be more, and they'll be worse, because the legislating is hard, and oftentimes they get it wrong no matter what it is. The other is technology, right? We can make better technology. We can make privacy-enhancing technologies. We can make C safe. We can do all these kind of things, and that way society can continue to evolve. Users continue to be stupid. Our teenagers continue to share, but they can't do it in a way that is uncontrolled, that is damaging, that is hurtful to themselves. Again, yeah, these companies have got to understand risk and how to manage it, and that's a cost of doing business. But at the end of the day, when JPMC spends however many hundreds of millions of dollars they spent and they got owned, there's no high watermark here that's success. It's all failure. So why would we hold them? I mean, we're failing because we're not building systems that allow them to have a success bar. I don't know that we can, but I sure as hell don't see a path forward where I'm going to get on TV and Fox News and be like, secure your shit. People will be like, duh, I guess I should have done that. And it's going to change the fucking world. God.
Who does that?
Quality costs money.
Fox News?
So it was just the first thing to, yeah, God, I don't need to start that holy war. The only software developer left in the world has a comment.
Oh, look, a unicorn.
Oh, we're going to get in a weird place here. Like, we're going to start having language battles.
Like we're not in a weird place already?
No, you're not anymore. That guy's the only developer left. Trick you into giving your data? By what, putting first name and you enter it in? Thank you. Don't use Android.
The key is knowing what you're getting into.
That's something I don't understand. We talk about the privacy debate, and it's like, oh, I'm security conscious. I want the most secure system. I want to be private, and I got a frickin' Android phone. What the fuck?
Yeah.
Those that could give up some security, what's the framework?
Yeah, liberty, blah, blah.
Android
Yeah.
advertising slogan. If you'll give up, yeah.
So I want to respond.
Hold on, I got a question in the back.
I want to respond.
Raven
to the only
standing up.
developer in the world first.
Raven, come
whatever.
up here so we can hear you.
Yeah, come on, Raven, you can come up on stage. Like, guest appearance, yay! This is the part of the show where we have a guest. Like,
Before our guest, I want to respond to the only developer in the world.
Panel crashing.
The reason we can't give you stuff that makes everything you do inherently secure is because there is no such thing as inherently secure. There is no action which is a secure action or an insecure action. It's all contextual, and we just can't capture that in a programming language. I agree that we can make it easier.
So my point about the privacy question is it's not just your information that you're choosing to give up. You know, in a connected society, we all know things about our friends. I'm not on Facebook. I do not have a Facebook account. Every so often, a fake Raven Alder will pop up on Facebook, and my hacker friends, bless their heart, will connect to it and say, oh yeah, remember that time at DEF CON with the inflatable sheep? So many people have your information. Many of them mean well, and they will happily give it up to anyone that they think looks remotely like you. And that problem is only going to get worse as time goes on. So what I've done with that, besides not being on places in social media that I feel are going to not handle my information well, is to try to have a risk management plan for, when my non-technical father, bless his heart, decides that he wants to talk to Black Hat 47, who is currently Raven Alder on Facebook, that, what am I going to do with what that happens and what that says? And I try to be mindful when communicating information about my friends that, maybe I don't want to buddy-buddy to this total stranger and tell them embarrassing stories about my friend who's going to get really pissed off. But not everyone is that mindful, and you have to be prepared for that.
So a lot of people know that I got married this summer, and well, I don't have a Facebook account, thank you. My wife does, all right? And she, and my friends do. Most of my friends don't know enough not to post pictures, but my wife is posting pictures, all right? She's posting wedding pictures, she's tagging my face all over the place, she's mailing them to her. I can't tell my wife not to use Facebook. Like, that's not... Like,
well, you can, but you may not have a wife.
And you know how this works. You can't tell Heidi anything, right? I can't tell my wife anything. Right?
She's not here right now.
Oh, yes,
Thank God. But, all right, but how many people on Twitter delete your DMs? Like, I know my Twitter account is going to get popped eventually. I'm not leaving all those private conversations about all those bad things I said about people in the DM laying around for people to find.
It's kind of a jerk.
And I know they pop up every now and then because Twitter doesn't actually delete them, but I go back and delete them again. So anyway, I'm ranting.
Raven, if I may ask, what kind of phone do you use?
I have a black phone on order.
Oh, there you go. All right. What?
It's
That's a private question, sir. Hey, Heidi's here, by the way. All right, we're getting long in the tooth, and I think we're going to go, as the gentleman in the back so kindly pointed out, we rehashed some things that have been hashed out already over the last, since we started. And I think that's somewhat telling, and I think in some ways I was hoping this would be a charge to you all to go out and try to make a difference. And again, I'm a big fan that whining and complaining doesn't get anything solved. Action does, and the longer standing the impact of the action, the better off we all are. So I would encourage you to try to go forward and my wife's leaving me heads of animals. Yeah, he is on Twitter. Like he said, that's the thing. Like there's like a holier than thou. Like I'm not on Facebook, son of a bitch. I'll get into a Twitter war like that. Like.
Hey Bruce, before you
parting shots.
I got one quick word to Carole.
Sure.
Cyber.
Choose your poison.
Thank you.
Are there any other parting shots besides cyber from the panel?
I already said my piece. I'll let it slide.
All right.
No, I've given up on it too. It's like we had the whole hacker-cracker debate and all that other.
Wow, we haven't had that debate in a while.
Yeah.
Like I think we pretty well.
Put something to bed.
We lost it actually.
Cyber is basically going to be the next term.
So I had questions around like disclosure, the issue that the current breaches uncovered a bright line between those in the know, like those people that are responding, versus those that don't, the backseat InfoSec quarterbacks. Is this the new normal? What's the impact of the current Microsoft and Google discussion on disclosure, and is responsible disclosure the conversation back? But honestly, I think that's better left for some other time when we have another hour, because and more booze. We can just do it on Twitter, because in 140 characters, I'm sure we can rationally debate disclosure. We sure as hell have tried, so. All right, with that, I wanted to thank the panelists for all their input today, and thank you all. So.
you like to thank them properly?
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. I need to. Oh, right. In the as is the tradition of my forefathers, I have slain animals and will be providing them to you. These are smaller than normal because it was a panel. We try to give like the keynote speaker one that's large enough you can't stuff in a drawer. Like that's the thing, like you want like the most annoyingly large thing to give to a keynote person because they have no choice but to display it or throw it away. That's the only two, it's a binary decision, they won't throw it away, so you're gonna walk into somebody's office and there's a stuffed moose head on the wall. You're like, oh, you were a ShmooCon keynote speaker. But these are actually small enough that you could hide them if you so chose, but we would hope that you would not suffocate on the bag. Here, just I'm gonna give it to you.
Not you. Hand it down. You don't.
Not you, what, you give him one to... Yo, there it is. All right, there we go. All right, now we're out. Thank you very much, and we'll do closing in just a minute. Did she take away your list?
Raven gets mine.
More for the carry-on.